Between videos, just to make sure everybody's on the same page, I did a couple of things. I grouped together our light layers and our main color layers by shift clicking multiple layers, right clicking, and choose group layer. That's just to make the layers panel a little easier to navigate. And then I also changed the name of our layer with all of our decals on it to alphas. So I'm going to talk about anchor points. So anchor points are going to tell substance to normally when you paint over things like height alphas and stuff like that, substance doesn't know to calculate the data from that height map in what it's painting. So if you give it an anchor point, then the Substance Painter will know to take that data and calculate it when it paints on top of it. So the way you do that, the way you add an anchor point is you right click onto your mask and click add anchor point, and it's going to add this anchor point. Alpha's mask is totally fine name for this anchor point. You could name it however you want. Make sure that you understand your own naming conventions because you're going to be referencing your anchor points as you go. So what do we want to do to this thing now? I want to kind of get some detail inside of the height here in this in the decal. So let's dirty this up a little bit. I'm going to start by I'm going to start with a new fill layer, and we're going to use this rust. All right, so that's a lot of rust, and obviously we don't want it to affect the entire scooter. So we're going to stop that from occurring. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a black mask. And then from here, I'm going to paint the mask, but I want it only to affect certain parts of the mesh. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this tool called the Polygon Fill tool. And there are 4 different options here in the top left here. There's triangle fill, polygon fill, mesh fill, and UV chunk fill. So if I use tri fill, what it'll do is if I paint on it, we'll paint and fill the triangles. Triangle fill also paints inside of your quads, but it paints it in like triangle chunks. So you can see where it's kind of painting half of the quad to create a triangle. If you use quad fill or polygon fill, it'll paint entire polygons on your UV map. If you choose mesh fill, it'll paint specific sections of the mesh depending on what you select and how the mesh is actually separated. And then if you want to use UV chunk fill, you can actually paint by your UV chunks. So if I clicked on that, that would affect that specific chunk. Let me drag this over a little bit. This will affect that chunk, so on and so forth. And then you can also click on specific parts in the actual mesh. But anything that it affects, any separation, so like this bike rack or this rack back here is separated into multiple different chunks in the UV. It'll only paint specific islands in your actual UV layout. So what I want to do here is let's paint on our wheel well here and here. And let's do nope. I only want to do the front of the wheel well. I don't want to do the whole thing. And the other side here and here. Let's start with that. That's a good start. All right, so we have that, and now we need to affect just specific parts of our. Um, uh, we want to affect both the wheel wells that we wanted to paint, but in a specific amount, and we also want to make sure that it gets into the crevices the right way on the wheel wells here. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click. We're going to add a generator on our mask. This generator, like the light generator, there's a bunch of different ones you can choose. There's a really cool one here for dirt. We're going to use that one. And what it's going to look like here is it's going to paint over the whole thing um, with a kind of procedurally generated dirt look, and you can change all sorts of effects on it, um, including the level and the contrast of the dirt, if you want to make it darker or lighter dirt. And all sorts of other things that you can mess with. But what we want to do is we want this to only affect specific parts of our mesh. So what we want to do is we go down here to micro details, and we want to turn on our micro height and micro normal. Then we want to go down to our micro normal and micro height. If we click on it, we can go over to the anchor points tab and choose our alphas mask. And then micro height, same thing, choose our alphas mask. There we go. And now that rust is painting, it is considering our alpha height that we've drawn on here when it's painting that dirt mask. Of course, this looks backwards, and we don't like that way. So what we want to do is we can go to our levels tab, our levels drop down here. You just click invert. Now it's inverted inside, and now we can just mess with our levels to get that kind of effect that we want. I can tell you my computer is not enjoying doing this while recording. Here we go. And again, we have this is affecting certain parts of the mesh that we don't want it to. So what we can do is we can right click on our dirt. We can add a fill layer there. And we can well, that's weird. Haha. That was what it was. So again, you can also see that this is affecting parts of our mesh that we didn't want it to, like the tires. We can fix that again by we have our our actual mask targeting specific parts of our mesh. And then we go to our dirt layer. And if we change its blend mode from normal to multiply, it will only affect the parts of the mesh that we had selected. And if we want to add more to that, we can go into our mask, go back to our polygon editing, or polygon fill, and then let's select, like, let's dirty up these are a whole polygon, please. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. And then we can affect the entire basically all the metal of our mesh. Engine. That's too much. And just paint on, fill on our mask how we want. There we go. All right. And on top of that, say we wanted to let's do another fill layer. And then on top of this fill layer, we're going to add a black mask, and we're going to add another metal rust layer. And in the black mask, what I want to do is I want to select, with our polygon fill, I want to select the gold in the trim. Can I select all of the trim? That would be good. And then from here, we want to add another generator. Generator, of course, is a dirt generator. And we want to make sure that it is set to multiply, so it's only affecting the trim, so we get a bit of a patina look to it. And then if we go into our dirt, let us this is another kind of important part, I think. If you have your fill layer that is attached to the, I believe this is the right one. Yeah, it's attached to the anchor, and that is below your anchor point on your layer panel, then it will not actually affect that layer. It has to be above it. The anchor point has to be below everything that wants to affect it. Important point. So, for instance, go to our main colors, find this gold. I think this is the right gold. Yes, it is. Go click on our mask and then right click, add an anchor point. We're going to call this trim mask. And then we go back up here to this fill layer, to this dirt. And we go down to our micros, make sure that they are on. And then our micro normal, trim mask, and our micro height, trim mask. And one of the things I want to do is, I think, get rid of color. I'm happy with it, I guess. Yeah, why not? There we go. So now we've given it some wear and tear. And we get out of this. Only thing I might do is reset the video. Be right back. All right. So now that we've dirtied this up a little bit, I want to do one last thing to kind of show you that it's not just, you don't have to prepare your alphas and everything that you want to use for your height stamping and stuff like that. You can actually do that straight in the engine, or straight in the substance. So if I were to create a new fill layer and give that fill layer a black mask, and then um, go to the fill layer itself, and we're going to only select our height. Oops. There we go. We're only selecting our height, and we're going to drag it in a little bit. Just like you would if you select your mask, make sure that's selected. Just like you would in like a Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever, you have all of your different brush tools and things over here. One of them is the pen tool, and this pen tool will create paths very much like it will in Photoshop. So give you the quick and dirty. If I there we go. If I were to click and add a point, and then click and add a point, and then add a point in the middle here, and then I can drag this point and create a curve. This, because I have only my height selected in my material layers, this is only drawing height. So we can actually draw, depending on how I wanted to shape this, we can actually draw detail into our mesh in particular shapes. So maybe something like that looks good. And then I want to go here to our brush size, and let's increase the brush size a little bit. That's too much, probably. It's gonna hate me for that one. And then let's make this, as you can see, it's kind of dug in to it and gotten caught up with that rust pitting that we've done to the paint. We'll fix that in a second. But I also want to give this a color, because I want to give it kind of a pinstripe look. So we'll add color to it, and we'll go for something like that. And then let's also add metallic, so we can increase that and give it kind of a shine. And add a roughness, and we will reduce the roughness. Something around there. Might be too much of a shine there, actually. Something like that. I want this a bit brighter. There we go. All right, so now that we've got this pinstripe here, but we also want it to mirror on the other side. Well, there is a tool here. Give me a second, because I am on the wrong part of the layer. There is a tool here. This button is called the symmetry button. So if you click on that, it will create symmetrical actions on either side of a mesh, if that mesh has symmetry in it. So let us go back in here, and we'll delete these points. And we'll draw again. So let's draw a point there, point there, point there. My symmetry wasn't turned on. There we go. I was like, that's weird. And then if we move this around, maybe we add another point here, kind of give it bit more natural curve. I don't love it, but we'll deal with that. We'll leave it like that. Maybe, like that. Sure. And then we go to the other side, and we look at it, and there you go. We have symmetrical pinstripes. This is good if you wanted to do, let's say, I should also mention that your symmetry line is highlighted on your mesh. so you can see that as you're working. Let's say I wanted to do let's add another oh no, that's a lie. Let's add another layer, another fill layer with another mask. And then in this mask, we are going to give it an alpha, which we're going to search for. Alphas. Let's say we wanted to do something, I don't know, something like this. Okay, that's our alpha. And we want to go to our paintbrush so we can paint on it on the alpha. You can see that black dot that's moving, that's showing you the position of it, of the symmetrical, the center of the thing when it's mirrored to the other side of the symmetry line. So if I were to click, oops, I forgot to change the important parts of this, which is to alt-click height, so we're only working on the height. Reduce it, and go back to our mask, and bam. Oh, that's an interesting one. I wonder how that happened. Oh, my... Can we try this again? There we go. So now I can paint and stamp things symmetrically. And then again, you can create anchor points with these and then direct those anchor points for additional layers above. All right, and that's about all I wanted to go over today. I highly suggest that you kind of explore the other material options and things you have. Remember, with a Substance 3D license, you should have access to some of the Substance 3D source downloads for different materials and also different static meshes if you would like to incorporate those into your final project. This week's I guess because of the change in schedule, this week's texturing project is going to be more about getting your base layers down with the correct amount of roughness and metallic and all of that. While the more advanced one is going to look at smaller details. I want to see with that one, I want to see things like drawing your own paths and doing additional detail work inside of that mesh. So for the 20th of October, I want to make sure that you guys have been able to create solid colors and, used the correct metallic and roughness height settings to get your materials to look kind of the basic shape that we want them to be. And then from there, add on to it for your next project for next week. Thank you, everybody. Again, I apologize for the kind of screwed up schedule. So hopefully this kind of gets everything back on track. See you guys next week for, I don't actually know what our next, I think it's character design, I think. I'll double check that, but I'll see you guys next week for our next lesson. Thanks.